message or this tonight's webinar. We want to welcome those of you who have joined in via Facebook. And you didn't get all 5 sessions, but if you stick around, on the front side of this, you'll get the recapitulation. And what that is, at the beginning of every session, I always like to recapitulate or go back over some of the more salient points from the last session. That way we can tie it all together in tonight's presentation. Good. So hope you have a beverage, something to your whistle if necessary, and then we can get started. Let me take it to the top here, and we're going to start right on up. Again, tonight's session is the 5th and final session of the Envision course, and this is the bonus teaching that states the topic is there anything else? And that's what I want to focus on tonight. Is there anything else? Many times when we are in meditation or we are in prayer, communicating with God, source, the universe, we will get a download and we will run off. But sometimes you need to stick around a little longer to find out if in fact there is something else going on or something else that needs to be addressed or something that will be added to what has been shared with you. So tonight's bonus module 5, is there anything else? Basically, I'm looking at creating from the heart versus creating from the head. I'm going to kind of be focused on building coherence between the mind and the heart, okay? Notice I'm not dealing with the brain, okay? We've been living our lives for too long just inside of this conversation of the soulish mind. That is the mind that has to do with the being held captive to the sensory realm, what we call the brain. And so we're looking at building coherence between the mind and the heart in the creative process. And when we're talking about the envisioning process, we are looking at not creating from vision, because vision usually is more aligned with what you see with your 2 eyes, where envisioning could be more of that what you see with the 3rd eye. So that's what we want to look at tonight. So I want you to right now take a deep breath in, breathe it in, filling up your diaphragm, expanding your lungs to full capacity. Now I want you to just let go, relax. You're going to focus your attention on the heart area. So you can put your hand right here, right above the heart chakra area, which is green. And I want you to imagine your breath is flowing in and out through your chest versus through your nostrils. Breathing in and out breath. So let us do that. So I want you to breathe in and imagine the breath coming in through the heart, holding it. And then I want you to exhale and it goes back out the heart. Breathing in and out, long deep breaths, holding it, resetting, recentering, balancing out your entire being. Exhale. Now I want you to continue to breathe in and out throughout the entirety of this presentation tonight. I want you to make a sincere effort to be conscious that you're breathing in and out from your heart with calm and with ease. So let's start by kind of doing a quick review of some of the things that we went over in the last 4 weeks. We started with talking about visualization or holding an image as God, as good. We want to hold that image before you. And hopefully that image is inclusive of what is God's vision. And many times the images that we're holding are not inclusive of what God's vision is or source vision, but it's just the vision that has been given to us by the television or by external stimuli. And so we want to begin to know the difference between vision and envision. Visualization is limited to what you know, and oftentimes and what you can see. Therefore, it's only good as what you have experienced or come in contact with. So when you talk about visualization, you usually have a level of limitation because it's only what you can see or have seen. Whereas on the other side of that, envisioning, it comes from the inside, things that you have not seen. It says, eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, neither has it entered into the heart of men. Now, that's telling you something. It has not entered into the heart of men, but it has entered into the heart of those who are recognize themselves as divine beings. So visioning is usually an external, or is externally and experientially driven. In visualization, we know what we want. We know what we want. Okay. But it may not be inclusive of what source has for you. It may not be inclusive of what your sole purpose was or its design is in life, what you came here to do, be, or have. So we want to know to know that there is a distinction here between visualization and envisioning. Envisioning or is intentional, okay? Being open to God's vision, being revealed to you or to us. For that to happen, we must first spend time in meditation, seeking that which isn't so apparent and so easily grasped. And there's a difference between prayer and meditation, okay? We spend too much time in prayer because we have not been taught about meditation. Meditation has to do with getting quiet, and many of us can't deal with quietness. We have to have something on, some kind of noise going on. But when you're into meditation, you want to rid yourself of everything. Matter of fact, some things you can't turn down. You can't turn down the natural sounds out in the environment, but you have to learn how to go inside. And when you go deep enough inside, you tune all of that out. And what you're doing is you're looking for that which is an apparent, that cannot be seen with the eyes, cannot be grasped with the sensory self. The Bible tells us that many are the plans of man, and those are the plans that we have. But it also tells us in the book of Job, chapter 33, verse 14, that upon his bed in a dream, God seals out. He gives us his instruction, and he corrects us. And so it talks about the necessity of sleep. It talks about the necessity of getting to a vibratory frequency that is called the God frequency. And it's so much easier to get there when we are asleep. So the envisioning course that we've gone through is a strategic approach to ascertaining what's God's highest and greatest good in every area of our lives. It's asking questions and waiting on the answer. Asking and waiting. And the answer won't come from outside, for the answer is in you. For little do we know that we are the answer. Okay, so envisioning is not about planning. We talked about that. It's about finding out God's or sources idea for every domain in our lives, from our health domain, from our wealth domain, from our career domain, our relationship domain, all of these different domains that we have, that we want to have. Not only do we want to know what it is that source wants for us, but we want to create from in alignment with all of those domains. And so in module 1, week 1, we talked about what is Amin's vision for itself. What is the invisible vision for itself through my life? What did it look like? What does it sound like? What would it feel like when I'm experiencing it? We talked about giving source the liberty to fully express through us, okay? Through you, as you. And the answer may be yes. That is, many of us start the course by saying, yes, I'm willing to say yes to his will. But how many of us really are living in in coherence with the very thing we say yes to? Okay. Are we saying yes to one thing, but doing another thing? So we had to do some soul searching. The second week, we talked about what must I become? Okay. And it's important that we go back over these things, because the more you hear it, it becomes second nature, actually become first nature versus second nature. So in week 2, we talked about the powerful question was, what must I become in order for source to operate fully through me as me? If we didn't have to become something, we would already know. And if we already know, we wouldn't be having these questions. We wouldn't be going from this thing to that thing. Inside of that week, we talked about what must I change? Where do I need to grow? We did the I am exercise, and the I am exercise revealed a lot. Okay. And we found out that often we define ourselves fully and limited to what we've experienced, limited to superficial, surface things, or what was acceptable. But many times when we define ourselves inside of things that are acceptable by society, we lose our authenticity. And many times when we start that exercise, we find that we're not authentic. We're not defining ourselves wholly and fully as we were meant to be. So we talked about in that second week also becoming comfortable with identifying with source even beyond God. To the fact of you can say, I am the Father, I am source, I am one with the Creator. I am a microcosm of the greater macrocosm of the Creator. That which created the universe is the divine spark that is within me. Week 3, we talked about what must we let go. Okay. So if you want to be something, sometimes you got to make space for it, and you have to let go of things. So envisioning presents a space of possibility that starts with releasing whatever we say or whatever we may be resisting. You know, if that thing you don't want to let go of is the very thing that may be the turnkey that opens your whole life up. Okay. And we talked about looking in our closets, looking in our storage units, looking in the cupboards of our, looking everywhere to see what do we have, looking in our basements, looking in our attics, looking to see what material things do we have that's crowding us out, that there is no more space. So the universe don't even send those things because there's nowhere to put it. And what was more deeper than that is to not just look at the material things, like your closets, your storage units, your cupboards, but how about your mind? What is occupying your mind? What is occupying your heart? So what must I let go? It says the cares of this world. We got to let them go sometimes. So what must I let go? What must I release in order to create a space? So we talked about that in the third week, creating space for God's highest and greatest good, creating space for the universe, for source, highest and greatest good to manifest through us as us. The easy one that comes to mind when we talk about that were things such as anger, judgments, unforgiveness, blame, shame, guilt, resentment. So we can identify those things we must let go of. But then one of the things we dealt with that week was fear. Okay, fear of change. Okay, letting go of the past, moving forward, doing something that's very different from what you've been doing. And with this whole COVID thing, part of the challenge for many individuals was embracing the newness of now. Life has changed. A year later, we are at a place where we'll probably never go back to. And some great things have come out of this calamity. Some things that should have been looked at years ago, but now we are forced to say, we can't do it that way, so we've got to do it another way. So same thing in your life. You got to look at what things have you been doing? What things have you been holding on to? And for some of us, it's religious beliefs, it's dogma, it's cultural orientations, conversations that don't really make space for the fullness of God or source to show up inside of you. And then last week, which was the official fourth and final week, we dealt with the topic of what must I embrace? So you release something, you got to let go of something. Now, what is it that I must embrace? That is, what is it that I'm to hold closely to myself? What is it that I'm to accept? So we looked at that in a deeper way. The Bible tells us in Ephesians 3:20, it says, now unto him that is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in us. So that's a powerful scripture because it is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think. Then why do we spend so much time asking and thinking instead of being present to what it wants to do? Because what it wants to do, it'll make sure that whom it calls, it will also equip. So that's one of my favorite scriptures is, now unto him that is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works within us. So we have to release some things, and we have to embrace this. We have to embrace that there is a power greater than us, a power that surrounds us, a power that resides in us, a power that is available to us, a power that we can use. So we talked about that last week. We talked about what must we let go of. We talked about what must we embrace. And here's some things we needed to learn how to embrace. We need to embrace God's will versus our will. But here is not a thing of, if you don't embrace the will of the universe, if you don't embrace what I would call your soul purpose, your soul path that you came here to experience, if you don't embrace that, you can still live life and you can live a grand life, but you can live a life that at the end of life, you will be dissatisfied. And there in the scripture where it says, where you want to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. That is, you want to be here that when you return to source, that you completed that which you agreed, the agreements that you agreed to. So that's important when you're finding out the will of God. And many of you looking externally for the will of God, when the will of God is really associated with your birth sign, your birth date, all of those things, what we call the different crafts. They tell us a lot about ourselves that you can't find in a book. That if you were to have known that from the beginning of life, you could have had the opportunity to make some better choices. But because you didn't have access to some of the different things that could have been introduced to you, or reason why they weren't introduced to you, because we have a strong Christian orientation that has said that anything that appears to be dark magic, or anything that is anything other than what is given to us through Judeo-Christianity is incorrect. But we know that's not true, because many of you, every one of you listening to me right now, I don't care how saved or unsaved you may be, you know your zodiac sign, you know your astrological sign, and you know a little bit about it, and you resonate with it, but you kind of have some cognitive dissonance because the church, or you've been taught through your cultural orientation that those things are wrong. But I'm so glad that we're in the day and age in which we live, that people are more open to at least listening, experimenting, bouncing what they think they know up against what they don't know. And then they're able to really be impacted to the point of knowing God's will and doing God's will. So getting to know the will of God was one of the things. The second thing we talked about last week was the idea of having to trust yourself. Okay. And we talked about Matthew 22:39, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So you can't love anyone until you learn to love yourself. And if you're loving yourself, you have a more of a propensity to be able to love others. And if you love yourself, you're not only loving your external self, you're not only loving the hair, the skin, the complexion, the phenotype, full figured, slim figured, no figure. You love all of you, and you love what's the true essence of you, the God in you. And then when you can love all of you, then God loves you back, because you are having a level of gratitude of you are fearfully and wonderfully made and designed as is. You also have to deal with the issue of ability, that in all things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. For I am persuaded, the scripture goes on to tell us that you need to be persuaded that nothing, neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, or powers, or things present, nor things that are come, nothing, height or depth, nor should any other creature, any other human being be able to separate you from the love of God. And so people have told you that you're not qualified, that you're not blessed because of something you may be doing, something that may have you lassoed to it. But yet you need to know that God loves you, okay? Because God is in you. For it is God which worketh in you, both to will and to do its good pleasure. That's Philippians 2:13. So when we talk about ability, we have to know there, if any man, if any woman, if any person be in Christ or have the Christ consciousness, he is a new creature. It's not just knowing scriptures, but having a consciousness and a God awareness. Old things are passed away. Okay, that's something that you let go. And behold, here's what you have to embrace: all things become new. And we finally wrapped up last week dealing with the idea of having to trust God. You know, we have to trust that God's word, not only just a written word, but what He speaks to you in your meditation, is the lamp for your feet. It lays the path out before you. It's a light on the path. Okay, and this Proverbs tells us in Proverbs 3 to trust in the Lord. Okay, and the word Lord means the principles, the universal principles. Trust them with all your heart. You don't even say your head. Matter of fact, it says, lean not to your own understanding. Lean not to the realities that you find in your sensory self. But he says, in all of your ways, submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Submit to that inner man. Submit to that inner presence. Submit to that inner power. Embrace it. And you got to embrace the fact that you are worthy of, and you're good enough. So tonight we're looking at the fact that you should be clear on some things if you've done all the homework. But tonight we're looking at something different. Everything that you desire already exists. It exists in the chaos, in the unseen, in the quantum field. You know, the science talks about the quantum field. Good person to get more information about this quantum field is, I would recommend that you look into Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton, Lipton. Anything that he has out on the YouTube, on anything book you can find by him, I highly recommend that you grab that. So when we talk about this quantum field, or the kinetic science talks about nonette, that field from which Ptah came, the field from which material things came. See, things are spiritual before they're natural. Things are unseen before they are seen. So everything you desire already exists. And when you go in meditation and you are operating from that realm, you see the possibility of what could be. So we need to talk about, in life, you're going to have some contrasts. And what contrast does is presents to us an opportunity to go into the field. So if you're sick, if you're dealing with poverty, if you dealing with anything that doesn't feel good, that's not right, it gives you opportunity to go to the place of the imagination. That's in the field, okay, with your mind. Okay, the imagination, imagine, could be our greatest and highest good. You want to imagine that. You want to imagine what would it be to be in alignment with that. And it starts with the relationship with the invisible, the unseen, the Amen, with God, with Source. It gives you the capacity to create in a way that is not humanly possible to create from. So that's why I like the envisioning course versus vision boarding. Because when you do the envisioning course, you're talking about establishing, resetting yourself to that inward witness, in reestablishing yourself to the power source. It's like a battery in your phone. If you're not plugging your phone up throughout the day, eventually that phone begins to diminish in power, and it can't run apps. The apps are running slower, and eventually it shuts down. And that's what happens to all of us. If we don't stay connected to source, eventually we shut down. Eventually we begin to run sluggishly. Eventually we just are not functional. So we need to talk about beliefs this week. I want you to begin to look at your beliefs, okay? Your belief centers in regards to head versus heart. The marriage of thought and emotion, okay? Thought happens in the upward chakras. Emotions happens in the lower chakras. And many of us are influenced by our lower chakras. And let me take a moment and pull up for you guys I want to show you something here. Let me see if I can share a slide with you so you can have a better sense of what I'm talking about as I move forward. So I'm going to share this screen with you. Okay, I'm going to share that. Awesome. Good. You should be seeing that now. Can somebody in the chat box tell me, are you able to see the image there? Just let me know. Awesome. Good. So those of you who are on Facebook, you should be able to see the image there also. And this image is an individual sitting in a yoga posture. And what they're doing is aligning themselves with the 7 chakras. So I want to kind of talk about that tonight also. But before I get to that, let me go ahead and put that on play. Okay. So there you go. I'll take it back here so you can see it. Let me escape out of that. Wow. Okay, so I want to stay right there for right now. That's good enough. Um, so we're talking about the head versus the heart, and we're talking about living above the heart, living above the heart up, not heart down. Living heart down is you're controlled by your emotional selves, your lower chakras. Not lower does not mean less than, but the vibratory frequencies are different than the chakras above, and we're going to look at some of that. So you want to understand that feeling is the union. So we're talking about the what is the key when you look at the conversation that is taking place now, and it's kind of old conversation that has to do with the law of attraction, what it has to do with the Think and Grow Rich. Though anybody who has read the Think and Grow Rich, if you never purchased the unabridged version, there's something missing because inside of that book, Napoleon Hill talked about. He talks about feelings. He talks about emotions. He talked about an energy, but society wasn't ready to hear that conversation. It was too woo-woo-ish, and so in order, his publisher did not allow that to go out in the book. And his book still did pretty well, but at some time in the most recent past, they got a hold of the manuscript and found that there was some things missing. It's like you can have all the tools, but don't have the thing is not operating like it should. And so when you understand the emotions, the feelings, and the union of emotion plus thoughts, you will begin to be much more powerful. Because if it don't move you, it won't move God. I mean, so your emotions are important. Some people say you got to control your emotions. You need. I believe you need to learn how to control your emotions, but not to the point where as though they're evil or they're bad. We need to be in contact with our feeling self. Okay, so but you got to ask yourself: does the way I feel support what I desire? That's important. So you want to change the material, you must change the energy, that thing that exists in it. The field is the governing determinant of how atoms behave, or Adam. The field created how Adam behaved. So the it says the field is the governing determinant of how you behave. And so you must become familiar with what is this field? What is this invisible thing? And so we want to look at some of we want to take some time and look at the chakras here. Let me pull that up for you. If you're looking here at this slide, you see there are the 7 chakras. The lowest chakra is your root chakra, and it's like it's right there in the middle where you sit at. It deals with security, grounding. It's survival instinct. A lot of people are living out of that chakra. And so if that chakra is not balanced, if it's overworked, everything else is out of balance. Then you go up to the orange chakra, and you come into what's known as the sacral or the sacral chakra. It deals with sexuality, intimacy, and emotions. For many of us, that chakra is totally out of whack because we look at sexuality from a very Puritan place that you shouldn't be doing it. You shouldn't explore yourself. All the things that comes with the a non-love for one's body. We have sex, but we don't have intimacy. So when we look at this sacral chakra, this is the chakra of creation where you create things from. And so if you are not okay with your divine self as divine femininity and divine masculinity and operating those things in a wholeness way, you're going to be off balance. Then the one in your gut is the solar plexus, and it's yellow, and it talks about it deals with energy, vitality, that flame of desire is the place of power. You know, when you get some really bad news, many times you feel like somebody just punched you in the gut, and that's what you're dealing with there. The solar plexus, and then that, if you notice, if you count, if you look at this, you got 1, 2, 3 from the heart is the lower vibrating frequencies all the way down from the root, and then the centering is the heart. Okay, and here you see in the heart, you see two what we would call pyramids, one inverted and one inverted. One is going face down, and that makes up what is sometimes called the Star of David. But it even was around before the biblical character personage, which is not a true person, was in existence. The heart chakra, and that's why it says in the Bible that David was a man after the God's heart. He lived from the heart. Okay, he had to come to the place where he mastered. So when you read the story of David, when you read his journal in the Psalms, you are hearing, you can see him moving up out of these three, getting to the heart, and later in life he lived above the heart. So it talks about love, hope, compassion. And then the next chakra is the throat chakra, the blue chakra, which is communication, creativity, healing, speaking. It has to do with the voice. So it's not your tongue, but it's the throat chakra. They work together, but it's important that sometimes your life is out of whack because this, um, when you got thyroid problems, is tied to maybe you're not speaking your truth to power. You're not standing in what you really believe, and you begin to have issues in the throat. And then you have that third eye, which I was talking about. That eye is, which is, it says if your sight, if your eye be single, then you have singleness and clarity of vision. So the third eye deals with clairvoyance. Yes, you can see things that you haven't seen. You can go places. I've had clairvoyant experiences before early when I got called into ministry, the shift that I was taking, I had out of body experiences. I went through an initiation in Africa. It was an interesting situation that I went through, and sometime I will share that story, but I don't find the need to do that here. Here, the third eye deals with your intuition. It deals. That's why you got to go into meditation. When you go into meditation, this is where you're centering from. Your intuition comes from there. Your psychic senses to be able to sense things, and then lastly, we have that very top chakra, which is known as the crown chakra. It deals with understanding, cosmic consciousness, the downloads. They come. Notice the downloads come directly through the third eye. It's for that, through the place of meditation. You have full understanding and you have enlightenment. Now, if you look to the left, you'll see, I like this image because many times when people are talking about the chakras, they're just seeing it from the front vision. But when you look at the chakras, you see they are all connected, and they really are in alignment with your spine. And when you see that there's a front and a back to the chakras, so they're able to pick up energy. They're able to not only pick up but emit energy. So that's another view I wanted to introduce you to. And so you can see even at the top, the very top chakra is connected to the lower chakra. The oneness of all of these, even though we separate them and deal with them as individual chakras, we have to learn how to integrate. How do they all integrate? How do they all interplay? And so that's a very important thing. So I want you to just be mindful that there is a chakra system, and I do have a course that I teach that, and I will at some point in the distant future, not too distant future, do that. So we want to talk about the brain and the soul. That is like an antenna. Your brain is an antenna. It picks up the frequencies, or picks up the signals that is sent up the spinal cord from the extremities, So when you talk about the soul, it's really talking about the brain. When you talk about the mind, you're talking about spirit. Okay, we lock possibilities into place when we are living inside of the spirit realm, not the soulish realm. The Bible tells that if you're soulish, if you're carnally minded, it's death. But if you walk by faith, you got to walk in the spirit and live in the spirit. So the heart, the spirit, um, the ka. We breathe life into possibilities by feelings that come forth from our heart. So when we have a possibility, when we have a vision or envision something, envision an image, or when we're creating something, if your frequency don't match that, okay, so the waves of the electrical field are 100 times stronger. Okay, so in the brain deals with an electrical field, okay, and they are like 100 times strong, okay, and then the waves of the magnetic field is 5,000 times stronger, okay, than the brain. So the heart field, which deal with the magnetic field, is 5,000 times more stronger than the brain. Okay. So we have to understand beliefs create or change them. So, how we believe, if our belief system aligns with the heart, then you're much more powerful than one whose belief system aligns with the knowledge base. Now, that's not to say, no, not okay. To know is from the heart because you feel it. To believe is from the head because you think you know it. But the reality is, we have to learn how to live from the heart and harness the head to bring it into existence. So the chakras, we talked about the heart chakra is the original think center for those who are spiritually based. The emotional center is the hormone producing place where we get that oxy, oxytocin, um, oxytocin, that feelings that we get comes from the heart. Feelings happen in our heart and beliefs that don't have to have a fact. You can believe something that doesn't have to have a fact and you just know. Okay. And that's different from just knowing something because you can't contend your faith. Like some people, when you try to argue or when they want to argue or when they want to defend and they run out of a defense, they'll just say, I believe. But I'm not talking about that same level of belief from the heart. So even if you believe from the head, it's only 100 times powerful. But when you believe from the heart, it's 5,000 times more powerful than when you believe from the head. You said I mentioned a God frequency earlier. Can you elaborate more on that? There is there's some research that has been done, and they have looked at certain frequencies, and like when you go into meditation, when you go into the REM state, the dream state, they call that like the God frequency, because that's where you get downloads, and that aligns with aligns with Job 33. Okay, so that's a whole nother teaching. Everything is frequency based. If your name has a frequency to it, the numbers, every number has a certain frequency to it, and so that's something we want to look at. But we have not been taught the value of numbers other than to count, not realizing that it take anybody that write music, they use numbers also. So um, it's important that you understand that you need to connect feelings and emotions. You got to have coherence, or to cohere is to become united in principle, relationships, and interests. So when you are in meditation, you should be getting a coherence. That is, you are aligning with the relationship with source, with God within. And there's a coherence that also should take place between the heart and the head, a coherence. And because we have a disconnect between the heart and the head, many times the heart suffers. So the natural state you want to be in at all times is a state of coherence. And the way to get into coherence is by focusing on your breath, okay? Taking long, deep breaths, exhaling long and slow rate, about 5 seconds, while taking thought to a place of gratitude and appreciation. And so you take your mind off of the situation, you take your mind off of what you desire, what you want, but you put your mind into a place of appreciation. That's important. So I want to kind of take you through that tonight. If you are tuning in through Facebook, and so you got an overview of what the Envision course is all about, hit me up if you want more information. I can send the course material to you. You can go through the self-study. But those of you who've gone through the last 4 weeks, you've just been introduced to it. But you got to do the work. The transformation is not about information. Transformation is about doing the work. The problem I had with Christianity, and I pastored a traditional church for a very long time, is that many of the believers weren't doing the work. And the work was only to show up at church on Sunday, or come to Bible study, or perhaps to give tithes and offerings. And if we did all those things, then we felt that we had performed into right relationship with God, but still having all the same challenges because nobody's talking to them about transformation. Example, part of transformation is life school, earth school gives you tests. So the word says God never puts more on you than you can handle. Is that really in the word? Or we've been taught to believe it's in the word. But here's the reality of it. When you have situations jump off in your life, it's an excellent time for you to lean into what you believe in. A lot of people are dealing with death right now. A lot of people are dealing with loss. Now, this is an excellent opportunity for you to lean into what you call your faith, what you call your belief. And if it's not able to support you, help you through that, then it's also a prime opportunity that source is saying to you, you need to relook that. So right here, right now, I want you to take a deep breath. Take a deep breath in through your nostrils, filling up your diaphragm, expanding your lungs to full capacity. I want you to hold that breath. Allowing that breath to do what it's been designed to do, touching every cell, every system, every organ, the entirety of your being. Now, exhale through your mouth, relaxing, slowly releasing, coming down to the bottom of that breath. And you pause. No need to rush. Now move into your next breath. And I want you to continue to breathe in. Imagine the breath coming in, your favorite color. Now lighten that color up, make it opaque. If it's orange, it's very light. Breathing in, holding that orange balloon inside, if that's your color. Now I want you to exhale, and as you exhale, you notice that that orange, opaque, has turned to a darker hue of orange. And what that means is you're taking the impure that's inside and you're releasing it on the outside. So as you stay with me through this exercise, breathing in whatever your favorite color is, and I would like to know what colors you guys chose. Okay, breathing that color in, releasing that color. And as you release it, it's darker than it was when it went in. Continue to breathe in and out. And I want you to ask yourself a couple questions tonight as you continue to breathe in. And the question that you asked yourself was, what is your vision for my life? If you say God, God, source, Yahweh, Allah, what is your vision for my life? What does it look like? Continue to breathe in and out. What does it feel like? Sound like? Smell like? Now taking another deep breath. Ask, what must I become in order to be in alignment with God, Allah, Yahweh, Yeshua, source, vision for my life? How must I change? How much must I grow? Now take another breath. The third question you're dealing with: what must I release and let go in order to create a space for it to show up in my life as it desires? You asking yourself, what no longer serves you? Who no longer serves you? What are your trust issues? Where are your deeper fears? Now breathe in and breathe out. You're asking yourself, what must I embrace? What is it I must embrace? In order for God's highest and greatest good, Source's highest and greatest good, Allah's highest and greatest good to be made manifest in your life. And your affirmation tonight is there anything else? Speak. Your servant listens. Is there anything else? Speak. Your servant listens. And when you say that, you're saying it from the position of this: I say yes to your will without putting conditions on it. And if you could take that on, you're going to find that your life will take on a whole new meaning if you really can take that on. That's what I'm saying to you tonight. Those 5 powerful questions that you want to ask